Hello and welcome. You're watching India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. The situation in Bangladesh is extremely precarious. I want to get you the latest that's coming in from Bangladesh, a country that's plunging headfirst into chaos. Bail has been denied a second time to the Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishnadas of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON. Now, the Hindu monk was campaigning for equal rights for Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh. And this government of Muhammad Yunus, Professor Muhammad Yunus, is a Nobel laureate. But the impression is that this is a government that's run by radical Islamists who continue to target Hindus in Bangladesh. And India has expressed deep concern over the arrest and denial of bail to Chinmoy Krishnadas and the inaction of the Bangladesh government over multiple attacks on Hindus and other minorities. The Ministry of External Affairs in a statement noted with concern instances of arson and looting of homes and businesses of Hindus and other minorities and the targeting of their places of worship, their temples and their deities. The Muhammad Yunus government has taken absolutely no action against the perpetrators of the violence. Hindus are being targeted regularly and systematically since the August ouster of the Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh. Now these radical Islamists, whether they are from the Hizb ut-Tahrir or Jamaat-e-Islami or Hifazat-e-Islam, they stand accused of making lists of Hindus and other minorities and targeting them, whether in universities. For example, in universities in Bangladesh, Hindus are being forced, Hindu professors and lecturers are being forced to resign. If you were to talk about the police force, Hindus are being systematically removed from the police force. Their businesses, their homes, their temples are being regularly targeted. And no action is being taken against these organizations like the Hifazat-e-Islam. Hifazat-e-Islam has called for the slaughter of Hindus and targeting of ISKCON members and leaders. Why? Because these spiritual leaders of ISKCON are calling for uniting Hindus to seek equal rights in Bangladesh. Now, I want to quickly cut across to India. Today's Ashutosh Mishra, who joins us with the latest. Ashutosh, you've been speaking to your sources in Bangladesh constantly. What is the latest that you can tell us? There are reports of Hindus being told to remain indoors because they're systematically being targeted.
That's the decision being taken amongst the Hindu community members. If they want to be safe, they should rather go and hide. Many of them have literally fled, and as we speak, particularly in Chittagong, their property, their houses are being burned. We have access to those images, those visuals. That somehow, by in hiding, they have recorded these visuals. So what had happened in the daytime, the police, the armed forces, they targeted the Hindu community member who were protesting against the arrest of Chinmoy Das at the Metropolitan Court. But after it got settled, after lathi charge, number of these people were taken to hospital. The Hindus returned back home. In fact, one lawyer who was a prosecution from the prosecuting agency, he was also died during this escalation, this atrocities by the police and the armed forces. And later in the evening, right after the sunset, these radical fundamentalists started marching towards the areas dominated by Hindu populations, Hindu residential areas, and then they started burning out the properties, the shops from the Hindu community members, and several houses. And that's a scale of panic that we are getting. SOS messages. These people have decided to rather go and hide. Many of them fled from the epicenter of this violent area in Chittagong. And
so Hindus are being hunted.
Is happening under
and I want this reflected. What you are telling us is Hindus are being hunted, Hindus are running, Hindus are hiding, their homes are being burnt, their shops are being burnt, their businesses are being burnt. And what about the police? Are the police helping them? You know, Muhammad Yunus is supposed to be a Nobel laureate. Is he doing the noble thing by going after the perpetrators, or is he a puppet in the hands of the Islamists? Ashutosh.
If I would simply say, Gaurav, there is no existence of a government in Bangladesh. There is virtually no existence of a government. It's an interim government, and the fundamentalists believe that now they are in the power, they are in the control, and that's exactly why we see the police and armed forces are remained a mute spectator. Everything that happened at Chittagaon court was exactly in front of them for last couple of days, and for last few days, wherever places we have seen the violence, these fundamentalists targeting the protesting or the peaceful protest of the Hindu community member or the Hindu organizations, everything happens in front of them, and they never target, never attack. Even in the October when this protest happened in Chittagong, the similar armed forces and the police members were hunting down these Hindu protesters, and so clearly we can see neither they have fundamental right to protest nor they have a right to raise their voice, and even if they speak to international media, you never know, by next morning they will be probably killed. And exactly why my sources are very much afraid, they are scared, somehow try to reach us out, hiding their identity, at least providing the information, because we are the only network across the globe. Forget about Bangladesh media.
Yes.
The entire globe has maintained totally silent. There's a zero silent is what happening, kind of atrocities against the minorities in Bangladesh. We are the only
very brave of your sources and very brave of you, Ashutosh, to bring out these facts in public domain. They're not being highlighted in Bangladesh. They're not being highlighted by the complicit ecosystem across the globe. Remember, Muhammad Yunus is considered very close to the Clintons and the Obamas, and many argue the deep state. And that is why this silence by those who are otherwise so vocal about human rights and minority rights. Ashutosh, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more, because there are multiple reports of violence and arson in Bangladesh. There's tension from Dhaka to Chittagong. Radical Islamists are targeting Hindus who are only seeking equal rights. They don't even have a right to protest. They don't have right to pray, right to worship. The administration, led by a Nobel laureate, Muhammad Yunus, instead of cracking down on Islamists, is instead cracking down on Hindus seeking equal rights. Chinmoy Prabhu was not only arrested but denied bail. We bring you more in this report.
A Hindu monk being dragged away by Bangladesh police in Chittagong for agitating over the plight of Hindu minorities in the country. Chinmoy Krishnadas, head of the Pundarik Dham, member of the Bangladesh Sanatan Jagran Manch, and a vocal advocate for the rights of Hindus in the country, has been charged with sedition. And why? Because he led protests in October seeking greater legal protection for persecuted minority Hindus by the new Muhammad Yunus government that has been overseeing a campaign of persecution of Hindu minorities since they came to power in August. And also for hoisting a saffron flag, which the Bangladesh government has used to accuse Chinmoy Das of disrespecting Bangladesh's national flag. As he was taken to court on Tuesday, Das spoke out, urging Hindu groups to continue their agitations. Das was previously affiliated with ISKCON and served as its spokesperson. Through his work with ISKCON, he has frequently raised concerns over the safety and rights of Hindus in Bangladesh, particularly in light of targeted attacks against the community. On Monday, shortly after Das's arrest, protests erupted in Dhaka and other parts of the country, leaving several people injured. The Indian government has stepped in, expressing deep concern over the denial of bail to the Hindu monk and reiterated concerns over rising extremism against minorities in Bangladesh, sharply criticizing the crackdown on protesters in the wake of his arrest. The Yunus government's targeted enforcement of law on a Hindu monk while giving extremists a conspicuous free hand to target minorities has become increasingly clear. 26 days ago, just before winning the US election, Donald Trump had issued a strong warning against minority persecution in Bangladesh. 3 months after coming to power, come January, the Yunus government will have a far less friendly face in the White House, one that won't look away as it permits communal extremism to run riot on the streets of Bangladesh. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now on this India Today special broadcast is Ambassador Veena Sikri, India's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Ambassador Sikri, is Professor Yunus, in your appreciation, is he unable or unwilling to crack down on these radical Islamists? Is he a puppet on their strings, or is he complicit?
Well, it is really a very worrisome situation because from 5th of August onwards, it's gone from bad to worse. And every time you think it's not going to get worse, it does get worse. And in fact, the Hindu community, they just have a list of 8 very peaceful demands that they have been talking about with the government of Bangladesh. They want a law to protect minorities. They want a ministry of the minorities. They want that all the perpetrators of the violence against the Hindus beginning from 5th August onwards should be charged and should be tried. And, all these kind of demands they have. But the group that has been set up, the Bangladesh Sammilit Sanatan Jagran Jyoth, that was headed by Chinmoy Prabhu, they were having peaceful meetings everywhere. Yes. They had peaceful meetings, and the last one was in Rangpur just over the weekend. But the meetings were not allowed, and even the people who walked 5 kilometers to participate in the meeting, they were attacked. The meetings were disrupted, and Chinmoy Prabhu was arrested on sedition charges, which is a very, very serious matter. And then today in Chittagong, as you saw in the visuals you are showing, that when his supporters came to, seek his release in the courts of Chittagong, there was a complete melee. The Hindu supporters were thrashed by the police, and a Muslim lawyer has lost his life. And there's complete confusion whether this Muslim lawyer was for the government or whether he was with the battery of Hindu lawyers who were protesting. And certainly the Hindu community has said categorically that they had nothing to do with the attack on the Muslim lawyer, and they in fact cherish him as a brother and friend. And these statements have come out from ISKCON in Dhaka, ISKCON in West Bengal and other places. But amazingly, of course, our government was very upset by this situation, and we issued a strong note.
So what I want to understand from you, Ambassador Sikri, is, was this students' revolution just a facade all along? Are radical Islamist organizations like Hifazat-e-Islam that are calling for slaughter of Hindus running Bangladesh?
Well, actually, now it's quite clear that right from the beginning, it seemed it was presented very much as a students' uprising. But then we saw that when Professor Muhammad Yunus went to New York and he was in the meeting with Bill Clinton, he said to the public, this was a very carefully planned and designed event. And he presented Mahfouz Alam, who is a special assistant to the chief advisor, and now who has joined the interim government as an advisor, and who is also said to be, by many, many people, to be a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir. He said that this is the key man, this is the mastermind. So, and that mastermind is now in the interim government, and also in the interim government is the head of Hifazat-e-Islam, which is a group set up to actually protect Islam. And that person, Dr. Khalik Rahman, he's also a member of Islami Andolan Bangladesh. So while the interim government is not supposed to have any political party representatives and is supposed to be a group only working for the free and fair elections within 90 days, we now see that the Islamists have totally penetrated. And certainly, to answer your first question, that Professor Muhammad Yunus does not seem to be in control. He is being controlled entirely by the Islamists, and he's doing exactly what they tell him. Now, to give you an example, today the Bangladesh government has put out another strong statement a few minutes ago, and they have spoken about complete communal harmony in Bangladesh and how it is perfect and everybody is allowed to have their way, and how the Durga Puja was very good, but we all know that in Durga Puja how many pandals were destroyed and all that. And they've said that this is an internal matter, and they've said that he is being charged. And Professor Muhammad Yunus has given a statement only talking about the death of the Muslim lawyer.
And that just shows how partisan, absolutely, that's the point I was coming to, that, so many Hindus have been killed and targeted, their businesses, their homes, their temples have been desecrated. Not one word, one word. And he's a Nobel laureate who's considered very close to the United States. From Joe Biden hugging him to being with the Clintons and the Obamas, and they're all silent. Donald Trump condemned the atrocities against Hindus in the run-up to US elections, but that hasn't deterred these radical Islamists. So, when there's so much talk about the US being champions of human rights and minority rights, why are they suddenly so silent?
Absolutely. The present government is completely silent, but we do know that President Trump had made a very strong statement against the situation in Bangladesh before the elections even. He had called the Bangladesh situation as chaotic, and he had decried and condemned the barbaric attacks on the Hindus and Christians and other minorities in Bangladesh. So obviously there is complete knowledge, and we do know that Tulsi Gabbard, who is now being nominated as Director of National Intelligence, she is very well aware of ISKCON's work. We do know that the Ramakrishna Mission and ISKCON in Bangladesh, they are the two organizations right from 1971 and before. They help everybody. They give them food. During the Liberation War, they gave food and shelter and clothes and everything possible to help the people fighting the Liberation War, you know. And now the Islamists, the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Hizb ut-Tahrir and others, they just want a complete, shall I say, emptying out of the minorities from Bangladesh.
They want Hindus to be slaughtered, and they're saying so in as many words. But what are India's options, Ambassador? I want to understand from you. Can Bangladesh be prevented from becoming another Pakistan or Afghanistan, become like the Northwest Frontier Province, or can it be prevented?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is that it is the constitution of Bangladesh, the present constitution. The people who are in the interim government today have sworn allegiance to this constitution. They have been sworn in on this constitution. They are obliged to protect it. But they are trying very hard to have various reforms commission and talking about reforms before elections and so on. But that itself, how can reforms be done by an unelected government? That is just not possible. It has to be done by parliament, by an elected group of people. So these pointers have to come out. And the fact is that free and fair elections should be organized as soon as possible in Bangladesh. This is the only way to get back to any kind of normalcy in that situation, because the Islamists want to prolong the delay in elections so that they can support, increase their own popular support, which is normally at a very nominal
What
level.
can India do? What can the US do? Will sanctions work, or will that be counterproductive? What are India's options?
I think India has very correctly right from the beginning said that we are prepared to talk to the new government, and I think discussions have been held on some subjects, and maybe there'll be consultations also very soon. So we are prepared to talk, but we are not hesitating to call out the present government whenever we see situations like this happening. And right in the very beginning, our Prime Minister wrote to Professor Muhammad Yunus about it. He spoke from the ramparts of Red Fort about it. He spoke to President Biden about it. So we are not hesitating to do that. And of course, the Bangladesh government is in complete denial. They pretend nothing is happening and everything is okay, and the loss of the person is only the only thing they're going to talk about. So I think that we have to be very clear on this. If human rights are being violated, everybody's human rights are important, everybody's, and the rights of the minorities are very important. And we cannot have a situation where it is business as usual and the minorities are being trampled upon like this. But the youth among the minorities have determined to take a stand, and they have said, we will not leave. This is our country. We want our rights. And that is why Chinmoy Prabhu had created this group called the Tamilit Sanatan Jagran Jyoth, and he is trying to fight for the rights of the minorities in keeping with the constitution of Bangladesh. We have to support them in every way possible, I think, because there is no way that this can continue the way it is continuing. I think there's no way at all.
No, because this radical Islamist organization that calls itself Hifazat-e-Islam, I fail to understand what kind of hifazat are they doing or they need from an unarmed Hindu monk who's actually calling just for equal rights for all minorities, including Hindus.
Absolutely. And even now, as you see the visual, he's speaking to his supporters as he's being taken away to jail, and he's saying, protest peacefully. Don't do anything against the law. Protest peacefully. And this is what the visuals are showing. But you see how the young people are out here. They are determined to preserve their rights, and they will not take it lying down anymore. So I think that we need to really take this up in an unequivocal way and call out the situation.
And it's my top story, and that's why it's my top story here on India First. Ambassador Sikri, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. We will expose these radical Islamists because we intend calling a spade a spade. But the arrest of the ISKCON monk Chinmoy Krishnadas, it's actually shocked spiritual gurus even in India. Chinmoy Krishnadas is a Hindu citizen of Bangladesh who is seeking justice and equal rights for Hindus. He's not waging war against the state. He's calling for equality. Now, I spoke to spiritual leader Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar earlier today, who urged the Nobel laureate to do a noble thing and protect Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh. Listen in. Gurudev, what do you make of what's happening to Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh?
It's so inhuman to see what is happening in Bangladesh against the minorities. I mean, by no standard, this can be acceptable by anybody, either the government or the public. And everyone has a right to protest in a democracy. You can't silence the voice of people who are standing up for their community, especially Hindu priest. He's not affiliated to any political party. He's there to uplift people's spirit, help them out when they are in need. He's the moral and spiritual guide of the minorities who are there. And arresting them is not going to help in any way, neither the government, nor the majority community, nor the minority community.
And is Bangladesh turning a blind eye deliberately, sir? Because the violence by radical Islamists started right when Sheikh Hasina was ousted from August now to November. That violence continues and appears to be escalating, Gurudev.
No, this was not expected out of a person who got Nobel Peace Prize. Muhammad Yunus, he has been around the globe. He has seen the democracies around the world. He's so well informed and he's so well educated. We expected him to be very fair, and I still hope that he will be very fair with the minorities there, especially the Hindu community. You know, you can't have a big section of your society live in fear like this. And so I would still appeal them to, please bring people together.
And why is this happening, Gurudev?
Take such actions which would completely alienate a section of your own society.
Absolutely, and this comes at a time when Hindus have fought shoulder to shoulder for the freedom of Bangladesh from Pakistani atrocities in 1971. They've moved shoulder to shoulder, but now Hindus are specifically being targeted. They're being removed from police. They're being forced to resign as teachers, as principals, as academics. The Indian embassy had to, the High Commission had to evacuate, families from there. How does the situation improve, Gurudev? What needs to be done just now?
This is taking that country backward. You don't want to make another Afghanistan-like situation or take your country backward, put it in a, in such a bad shape. We need to be very progressive and progressive looking, and we do expect that sort of reaction or that sort of administration by the new caretaker Prime Minister there. I mean, whoever is the advisor for this sort of activity there, they're not doing a good job. It's not a tit for tat for a political party to be put on a communities like that. Keep politics away from people's well-being, especially minorities there. Because minorities have always been supportive of Bangladesh and whatever government comes there.
And Gurudev, in a situation like this, countries like the United States of America, presidents like Joe Biden, who hugged Professor Muhammad Yunus, and they're completely silent on the atrocities that the Hindus are suffering, the Buddhists are suffering, the Christians are suffering, and radical Islamists virtually seem to be running Bangladesh, and the so-called democratic first world is silent. Does this actually show, the double standards, Gurudev?
You can't expect anything more from Joe Biden. He is very old. He can't even, perceive. He can't even think or speak properly. I mean, this is misusing this position and taking advantage of such incidences, such, weakness of people. But it is not going to affect Joe Biden. It's going to affect here in Bangladesh and the people. So, keep international politics out of the peace and harmony and togetherness of your own society. This is what I would tell.
And as a spiritual guru, you've been guiding so many people, improving their lives across not just India, but across the world in strife-torn countries, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or so many difficult areas, Gurudev. In our own country, there is the element in our society that wanted a Bangladesh-like students' revolution in our country, or a section that's completely silent on the atrocities that Hindus are suffering in Bangladesh. Does this indicate that even within our country, we have these elements who would let radical Islamists run riot under the garb of so-called students' revolution, sir?
There are different... there are different mindsets. You can't expect those mindsets to be completely not right. There was this, but administration should side with what is justice. If the people in the administration take right measures to, stop the atrocities and these things, then it makes a difference.
Is it time for Government of India to say something? Can we do something? What is your expectation, from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, from External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar? What can India do? What should India do?
No, India has big influence. India has been a part of the whole freedom movement. In fact, without India, it could never have happened. Bangladesh could never have come into existence. So, and also that, not only that, India has been part of the development of Bangladesh. We have contributed tremendously. Nobody can deny that. So, definitely, India will have to emphasize, put pressure on the government there to protect the minorities. Yeah, that's very important.
And your advice, your suggestion, how would you guide the Hindus in Bangladesh who've directly been in the line of fire for decades, of course, but especially after August?
I've said it already, that we need to take action now, and it's the government of Bangladesh. They should become more sensitive and see what the repercussion of this will have on their own image internationally, and also with their neighbors and their own people. They need to really take care of that. They cannot allow few Islamists and few of those radicals hijack their country. Yeah, that's very important. Thank you.
Gurudev, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. Sri Ravi Shankar, spiritual guru, saying it's time for Bangladesh, for the Nobel laureate, the government that he guides, they should look after minorities. Sri Ravi Shankar, Gurudev, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks.